I'm always like, it's $1 million. He's like, no, it isn't. It's 994,000. Whatever, 37 cents. Depending on your rounding. You're gonna miss us. Shelley gonna be able to keep me in mind?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I like to go off the rails, Shelley, so hold on. Okay, 7:30. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Geneva Area City School Board to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Here.
Mrs. Krieg.
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Here.
Mrs. Ortiz. And Mr. Pierson.
Here.
Are we in compliance, Mr. Lillie?
Yes, we are.
This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. If you're able, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any correspondence, Mr. Riley?
None on my end.
And I have none as well.
All right, look at us. I would like a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion about it? Do we have to vote on that?
Yeah, you do vote on that.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Treasurer's financial report, Mr. Lillie. I need a motion to accept Mr. Lillie's financial report.
So moved.
Second.
I will update the board on a few things. Our fiscal year is not yet closed out, so don't want to report on the complete fiscal year, but we are balanced. There's just a number of things to do. So I want to report to you, if you would look at your yearly revenue and expenditure report that's attached to the back of your financial report. You know, that mirrors the 5-year forecast. And so basically comparing how the year ended to the 5-year forecast, we look at our total revenues. Our total revenues were 0.3% lower than forecasted. So pretty close to the forecast. And they were 5.5% over the revenues compared to fiscal year 23. So again, you know, real estate would be the big part of that increase. For the expenditures, which is the top line on the 3rd page of that yearly revenue and expenditure report, expenditures were 3.7% lower than forecasted. So we still have a number of positions we weren't able to fill. You know, we do not have the number of bus drivers we would like to have. We go without a lot of substitutes. So there are a number of positions still not filled, so 3.7% lower than forecasted. Those expenditures, however, were 9.2% more than fiscal year 23. So expenditures overall did increase from the prior fiscal year. When you look at our cash balance, the ending cash balance would be 5.7% over what was forecasted. So that increase in revenues compared to the decrease in expenditures ends up with a 5.7% over forecast. So, just a few notes that I wanted to share.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or comments about that?
So I had a couple questions I just wanted to toss out about the house on the hill. And Kevin could kind of clarify. What are our thoughts around that? When we're talking about the possibility of a sports facility and the land that goes around that, is it parceled, is any of that land that goes around that house part of the land that was talked about with that the possibility of that sports facility?
No, none at all. I mean, the block of,
Okay.
the parcel that was sold, and that house, again, was purchased in 2014
Okay.
with the thought in mind that an addition might be built on that to make a new board office. But obviously, you've heard a number of things
Right.
over the last couple of years as to why that might not be a good option. And so at this point, I mean, the district needs to decide what they're going to do, whether they're going to
Well-
use it and incorporate it some way, or I don't know if you'd be able to sell that as a house again.
I think, personally, I think a great idea would be to, I'm always going to be an advocate for getting students involved, but I think it would be a great thing to maybe reach out to ATEC, see if we could get some kids involved in rehabbing it and getting it on the market and selling it, whether it's sold as a home or an office or whatever we want to do with it. In this market would be a great time to get that listed and put it towards a sports facility or whatever we want to do, but it's just sitting there, and this is a market right now that's hot, and I think we need to unload it because, as you said, we now have the board office. It's just sitting there. I think it's something we need to investigate. I'm open to ideas and discussion, but it's just, we need to capitalize on this in this moment.
I worry about the implications of having a neighbor right there. I don't know who would want to live right there where it's so busy and all that.
Sure,
And
but
a
I mean,
business there, I'd be worried about that too. That'd be my only concern. I absolutely agree that we should do something with it, but I don't know if selling it to someone else is the right answer.
I don't know what the right answer is either, but I think it's something worth investigating and seeing, what we could do with it, because just it's sitting there and us just sitting on it, I don't think is the right answer
And we've got
either.
storage in it, correct? Anyone know we've got stuff in
It
there,
is
right?
being used for storage.
Like what, whose stuff is in there?
Chairs, desks are in there,
I think there's some athletic stuff in there a little bit too.
Some things that were, had to be relocated out of classrooms because of flexible seating has been stored there because of the lack of storage space within the buildings. There was a neighbor in that house I don't know when she left before it was sold in 14, but that was 8 years after the
Right.
high school was built. But she didn't really have much choice as the
Sure.
land was purchased and the high school was built behind her. But yeah, I mean, that's a discussion the board will have to have in the future, decide what direction they want to move. If they want to talk to ATEC and see if they want to incorporate it in their program to fix it up. It is septic.
Yes,
The
those are,
lines were run over to our property from Woodridge so that it could be hooked up, if that was
Awesome,
a
okay.
thought, into septic and water.
I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit before you were via con Dios.
Unpickable.
Yeah.
Any
So,
thoughts from that end of the table? Mrs. Cybulski, Mr. Pierson?
So I don't even know how you start that. Is that a Mr. Ola discussion, or is that do we have a facilities committee that would start a discussion like that, or?
Well, that was one of the committees that was from the strategic plan that we talked about during last school year. I believe Mrs. Ortiz might have been on that. No, yes, Mrs. Markajon, you were not. I know I was kind of ad hoc added onto that.
we didn't have a board member.
Was not a board member? Okay.
No, I was on and then I had to drop out.
So,
No, I'm just saying.
so I know it did come up for
Stimulus.
discussion about what to use, and I have to go back and take a look exactly where it fell within that 3-year plan. I do know that one of the thoughts that they did have was having some of our students or ATEC coming out, refurbishing it, whatever the case may be, flipping it, taking the money,
Right.
and then maybe finding something else in the community to go ahead and keep that process kind of moving along that way. But we could certainly look into it. I'd have to go back and take a look. It has had some conversations within the strategic plan, though.
I just, instead of it just sitting there and, you know, not being used to its full capacity or going into further disrepair, it would be nice in this market to see if we could do something with it and put it to, you know, use. So I just thought
Kevin, do you have any idea what its value is now? Like, does it have any,
Did it
Well,
get
it's-
valued
It's,
with the?
it's tax exempt right now. You know, it's an exempt property. So I haven't checked the value. Obviously, when it was sold to us, it was sold for $130,000. So that was basically the last sale price on that house.
And that was 14. That was in 14.
That was in 2014. So obviously, we can check the Asheville County Auditor's website and see what they currently have listed, but
Okay, thank you.
it's not going to be valued as a home.
Sure. All right, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, let's try to,
just wondering if it would be any value to try to sell it as is? And
Right.
somebody else
I
could
don't know.
decide what
That's,
their
I was just
vision
throwing
for
it out there.
Flip it.
Yeah, exactly.
well, but if our students do it, you know, that's
Well, I
cheap.
thought there was I mean, I didn't look at the facilities plan thoroughly, but I thought there was some discussion or something thrown out there about a STEM lab, you know, using it for students as one of the considerations. No? I thought I remember hearing that thrown out.
A lot of our discussions stem from, it's difficult to have our students go from our building up there to have equipment and moving things like that. So that, I think it might have been drawn on the table originally, but then it was kind of storage was really consideration that they filed a sense. I know we did bring up as a committee, we were concerned if we sold it, you lose, you know, if they have some kind of political statements or
Right.
those kind of things, and that's like the front door of our building, that was a
And then you lose control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
concern for the committee.
Right.
We were discussing.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. Pierson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
I'd like a motion to approve the invoices, please.
Hey, I would note before you move on that, there is an additional check that was added to the check listing you received. There was a company, Wex Bank, did not receive their check. And rather than going into the new fiscal year and having to put it into unclaimed funds before we could cut a new check, it was moved, it was voided and reissued now, but as if it was June 30th. So that was like $1,230 to Wex Bank. So an additional check that you're approving as part of this approval of invoices.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? Roll call, please.
We needed a motion.
Oh,
and a
motion,
second
I'm sorry.
first.
We don't have the motion yet.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. Pierson,
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
and Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
Informational items and our current investments. Anything to share with us about that, Mr. Lillie?
Nope, you have the investment reports, investment report, no donations this month. I think new treasurer has a different plan for investments, so you can look forward to seeing how that looks in the future.
Can't wait to hear. I'm sorry, do we vote on that one? Yeah, right? Do we vote to approve those?
No, it's
No.
just informational.
And that's just informational. All right. Legislative report, please, Mr. Pierson.
Yeah, so as expected, last month I said we would probably be a little bit busier. We saw 25 bills head to Mike DeWine for his approval. The Ohio House and the Ohio Senate dramatically increased that number by sending 29 additional from June over to July. So that's
Nice.
where we saw just kind of small amounts of pending legislation. I'm going to go through them very briefly. Luckily, I was able to get with OSBA and get kind of a snapshot of each bill. DeWine has taken action on House Bill 2. This appropriations bill is going to provide $600 million that's going to go for funding school constructions and renovations. It's going to go ahead and pair with some of the infrastructure bills we have that are allowing us to have nicer roads, newer bridges for things like the railroad crosses. Today I saw the state of Ohio out surveying the highways. They were taking pictures of the joinders of bridges. I'm guessing that this appropriations is similar to improving schools in the same regard. Other education-related bills, I'm going to kind of rapid fire this. HB 47, it's going to require the placement of automated defibrillators in each public chartered non-public school and each public recreational facility. HB 147 is going to make changes regarding teacher licensure revocation, the hiring practices and conduct unbecoming of the teaching profession. If you remember, we covered HB 147. Its biggest material is barring former prostitutes who have been convicted unless there was a situation under duress, and it was introduced by our own Sarah Arthur Fowler. HB 214 would require each public school to adopt a policy regarding certain expectations related to the performance of staff members' professional duties. Our school itself continues professional conduct and training, so this wouldn't be something that we would not be in compliance with. It's more so codifying it. Most schools already have this requirement anyway, including us. Senate Bill 29 is going to make changes regarding education records and student data privacy, something that's very important. Why we were going over the radio and other records retention policies so vivaciously at the last meeting is because people are getting really good at stealing kids' data, so we really only need what we absolutely must have, and then ask ourselves the question, is it something we need to keep? Schools are now asking that question, same as the banks that keep your personal information so we can keep your guys' stuff more secure. Senate Bill 94, it originally only pertained to laws regarding the treasurer of the state. However, the legislature added some education-related provisions. Now it clarifies a provision allowing political subdivisions that enter a community reinvestment area tax exemption agreement with a commercial or industrial project to claw back exempted taxes if the property does not comply with the agreements. It provides $2 million for the Ohio Department of Higher Education's responsibilities related to educator preparation programs and the science of reading, including developing an auditing process that clearly documents the degree to which every program is conducting those audits in 2025. This will also require the chancellor to survey educator prep programs and issue a report of findings and provide $150,000 to support the work of the survey and report. SB 98 originally pertained to fraudulent business filings, but the legislature added 2 education-related provisions. Expands a property tax exemption that currently applies if a political subdivision, charitable organization, or educational institution leases property to another institution for use for a charitable, educational, or public purpose, and allows a county, Metro Park District, municipality, or community improvement corporation to apply within 12 months of the bill's effective date for an abatement of delinquent property taxes on property owned by the entity without regard to the regular payment limitations in current law. SB 112 would require school buildings to comply with safety standards. Now, some of the other things I put in this report are regarding just kind of the position of OSBA. We are taking a look at SB 168. This is going to be an extensive list of changes: teacher licensure, evaluations, exemptions for regulatory requirements for high-performing school districts. And it contains some corrections from HB 33, which is the biennial budget bill. And then there's just some language about the legislative liaison and some upcoming Senate bills. So the Senate bills I'm going to go through really quickly. SB 287, it's going to authorize property tax freezes for certain owner-occupied homes. SB 288 would make certain supplemental operating appropriations for the biennium ending in June 30th, 2025. SB 292 is going to provide authorization and conditions for operations of certain state programs, make capital appropriations for the biennium ending June 30th, 2026, and make other appropriations and declare an emergency. SB 293, sponsored by one of our Republicans in Canal Winchester, would require school districts to allow for least time courses in religious instruction. SB 295 would declare that the General Assembly's intent to revise the closure requirements for poor-performing community schools and public school buildings. We've actually seen SB 295 potentially affect Lakeland Community College. While I know it's not the most exhilarating thing, I would look up the current state of Lakeland and other community schools like it that are kind of fumbling funds right now, as 295 would affect not just public schools like us here for children, but also our community colleges. And unfortunately, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Pierson. In light of Mrs. Ortiz's absence, we're going to skip the ATEC report on the agenda, and I don't believe they had a meeting this month anyway, actually. But if they do, I'm sure she'll catch us up next month. Report of the superintendent. Substitute superintendent, Mr. Riley.
First off, we're going to have Michele Krieg, Director of Food Service, will give us a summary of our 23-24 food service operation, along with a look at the plans for the 24-25 school year.
Hello,
Hi, Michelle.
I am Michele Krieg, the Food Service Director. I did give you all 2 sheets up there. I left
Little
it off to the
closer.
side. Somebody was
Will it come
speaking
up
this
any?
who was short.
We
Can
need
you hear me
technical
okay?
assistance, Mr. Chenoweth.
I can speak up.
Pull it up.
There we go. Yep, that's good.
There you go, thank you.
Better? Okay. So in my, the first page of the 2 sheets I gave you is the 23-24 ending financial report. So it's a comparison of the 23-24 school year to the 22-23 and the 21-22 school year. So I'll just go through this quickly, basically the totals. If you have any questions, let me know. So the total receipts for the year were $1,268,831.14. That is broken down into basically 2 categories. The first one is the reimbursements from the government, and then the top category is everything else. And then for expenses, our total expenses ended for the year at $1,228,767.20. That gave us our ending balance of $291,648.24. So we were slightly ahead this year by about $40,000. And then at the bottom of the page there, it just gives a summary of our meal participation. So we were also slightly ahead there this year. We did about 190,000, just under 191,000 lunches, and for breakfast, just over 64,000. Any questions on this page? No, it's a lot of numbers.
Michelle, there's a summer number. We have meal service in the summer for a certain number of days?
Yes, so those summer numbers were, so this year we did 9 summer days for 2 weeks, but then there was that Wednesday that was backed out. It was a holiday, Juneteenth. So yes, we did the summer
okay.
feeding for the middle school and elementary at the middle school. That was under the seamless summer option. And then here at the high school, we did National School Lunch Program here
Perfect, thank you.
for the credit recovery here, and then it was just enrichment over at the middle school. Okay, and if no questions, then on the second page is just kind of a recap of the year, as well as some updates for the 24-25 school year. So again, I'll go through these quickly. If you have questions, feel free to stop me. So this, a recap of the 23-24 school year. We did purchase some new equipment and install that equipment. That was from an equipment grant that we received in February of 2023. Austinburg got a single-door dishwasher. GPS got another single-door dishwasher. The middle school got a reach-in fridge for a total amount received of $49,012. We also received supply chain assistance funding this year again. The total amount for that was $57,533.67. New this year, we implemented the after-school snack program at all the buildings. Our total in the just under 4 months that we served was 1,362 snacks served to students after school. So that was really exciting. And as far as student engagement, we had a couple of promotional opportunities for the year. So we did National School Lunch. We celebrated National School Lunch Week and National School Breakfast Week. We did the Christmas bike giveaway, which was a huge hit, as I'm told has been done for years and years in the past. Students loved it. And we also celebrated Thanksgiving with a Thanksgiving meal.
Michelle, I want to tell you and everybody something. So someone saw my husband at Geneva on the Lake and was like, Santa!
No
kidding.
way. Oh
No
my
kidding.
gosh. What did he say?
Recognized me.
Did he say
He's
yeah?
like, I'm not saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I have no
Yes,
idea.
you are. Yes, you are.
Oh, that is too
It was
funny.
hysterical.
That's fun.
Yeah, but that's an incredible program, and next year we're looking to do something similar, but we've kind of tossed around an idea of maybe doing with scooters instead. Maybe a little bit easier to transport, less, they're, a little bit less expensive, so maybe we can gift it to more students. So kind of throwing around some ideas for how to change it up a little bit for next year. But I'm digressing.
I still get
Okay.
to go though, right?
What's that?
I still get to go. Though,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.
And thank you so much. Next is our promotion of wellness. So we did trial and error, some menu enhancements for the year. For example, we tried veggie wraps. You can guess how that went over, but we tried. That's just one of the examples. We also removed the deep fryers at the high school. We implemented 2 self-serve fruit and vegetable stations at the high school as well. For promoting education, something we did this year was kind of collaborate with the elementary principals on some of our giveaways. They allowed us to take coins for the book vending machines in the elementary schools versus giving, like small snacks or little toys. So that was something new this year. And then I also this year revised our hazard and critical control plan books, our HACCP books, for each of the buildings to ensure all the staff have updated safety and sanitation information. We monitor and record our training hours to remain in compliance with USDA standards. And then new this year was the summer EBT from the state. So in the previous few years, it was the PEBT. This year is new with the SEBT. So worked with Bobby Horvath to get that information submitted to the state. And we are told that families are this month receiving funding from the SEBT for those families that qualified. So it would be probably the same families that received the PEBT. And then lastly, something new this year that we did was trial cycle menus out. In the previous districts I had worked for, we always ran the cycle menus for a couple of reasons. To just remain consistent with our menus, make sure we're always in compliance. It helps lower cost, and then also keep inventory counts low.
Michelle, can you elaborate on that for me? What does that mean, cycle menus?
Cycle menus are, we create one menu with multiple weeks, and we run that same menu throughout the year.
Okay.
So rather than, I think what I had seen had been done in the past was like they were getting kind of monthly menus printed out, sent out to the buildings. This year, we implemented cycle menus so that they are running the same menus for multiple weeks. We did a 4-week cycle menu for fall, and then in the winter we did another 4-week cycle menu so that we are kind of getting through our inventory. We actually did significantly reduce inventory this year, especially at the middle school. So it did turn out to be beneficial. So we'll be doing that again next year.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. And then for some 24-25 updates, again, I know I presented about this last month, but we will be running the meals at no cost through the community eligibility provision for the 24-25 school year. So I did just get the little alert that we were approved for it, so they said we would automatically be approved, so I expected that, but it just made me
always good to
feel,
know you filled it
yes,
out right.
it made me feel more secure in saying we are going for it, so that's exciting.
And that's free for all students.
Free for
in
all
every
students, breakfast and lunch, no more free and reduced price meal applications.
building.
This year will be our base year, the 24-25 school year, and then we can run it for an additional 3 years after. If after the first year we decide it doesn't work out for our district, financially speaking, we can opt out at any time. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then another update for the upcoming school year is a new online interactive menu that we are using called Healthy Pro. It's a menu planning software. It's replacing what we've used as NutriSlice. The main difference being that this Healthy Pro software has more abilities for producing reports for nutritional analysis, and it is USDA approved, so when the state comes and does an audit, I am allowed to use my reports produced from this software for my audit, versus with NutriSlice, these software that we've used previously, none of that was able to be used for audits. And Healthy Pro was presented on for our Ohio Schools Council, so they are on Ohio Schools Council. In the upcoming school year, I'm hoping to update a little bit of cafeteria signage. We'll see how that goes. And then lastly, I did just want to touch on the final rule that USDA published for child nutrition programs. It was published in April, and most of the language in the rule doesn't really apply to this school year. Most of it applies to the 26-27 school year, but I just wanted to put it on your radar. It's definitely things that are on my radar. It talked about, finally, talks about added sugar limits to school meals, so that's a huge plus. An example of that would be like breakfast cereals won't be allowed to have any more than 6 grams of added sugar per dry ounce. So there's different things with yogurt and flavored milk, which most of them that I'm checking we are already in compliance with, but there are some that our manufacturers have some work to do. And this time frame from giving them from now till 26-27 really is so our manufacturers can procure the new items so that they meet regulations. So there's established sugar limits for the first time, and whole grain requirements that were already in effect, but they're defining it a little bit more. Sodium limits. So yeah, as we get a little bit closer to that 26-27 school year, I'll talk about where we are, but most of it we're already in compliance with, so that's good. And I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Can you tell me about the after-school snacks? How does that work? Is that for children that stay after for a program, or is that for everybody?
Yeah, so they have to be doing some type of learning activity. So
okay.
they can't be, we can't serve snacks to students staying after for football practice.
Okay.
They have to be in some type of program enrichment. Like
Okay.
I have to actually say what they are learning about,
Okay.
that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, especially
That's
from the
wonderful.
teachers that are doing them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because as a teacher, like I'm usually, I buy a lot of snacks to feed kids, and that's wonderful when it's provided.
Yes, I've heard that from many of the teachers
Yeah.
that they were paying out of their own pocket
Absolutely.
or whatever. So I'm happy
That's
that we
awesome.
could bring
Thank
that this
you.
year. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Just a few more items on my end. As a reminder to the board and the community, the launch date for final forms was on July 1st. We had several items that were on the website. Robocalls went out, emails went out, and from what I understand, as I was on vacation at the time, there was extremely very positive feedback from the community, from Mrs. Horvath from registration purposes, Mr. Markajon, Mr. King, Mrs. Crosley. So far, everyone that's gotten into the program really hasn't had any significant issues getting in and completing the paperwork. What was interesting today is Final Forms allows me to get in to see kind of where we are at with the process. We have 412 students and families that have totally completed all of their forms, whether they're physicals, emergency forms, anything that's on there that they had to complete is all done. We have 68 students that have not completed what they need to complete, yet their parents have done so. Meaning it's probably an athletic issue or there's something else going on, but it will literally say which forms the students haven't completed or which forms the parents have completed and which forms maybe they both haven't completed or they have. So it's actually kind of neat. So in other words, there's 1,531 students or families that have not started or fully completed, meaning they've started it perhaps, but they just haven't clicked the submit button, or they needed to go get another emergency contact number. But it's just interesting the way the system is laid out, and I would say it's roughly about 25% of our student body right now that has gotten into the program. And again, it seems like it was rolled out very smoothly, much more smoothly, it sounds like, than what happened a few years ago. So I don't know, Mrs. Krieg, you're nodding your head. I believe you were one that got onto the program maybe, and
It was very, I mean, I filled out for Julia and had everything done, and I was texting her to tell her, she was at work, and I was texting her to tell her, it's going to kick you an email saying that you have to sign the student conduct, and she had already texted me, I already read the conduct and sent and signed all my forms and final forms, and I was like, oh, well, I was telling you that you needed to read this. So, I mean, it was very user-friendly, and she has her well check on Monday, so I'll let you know how the physical upload goes, because I haven't done that yet, but if it was as easy as everything else was, I think it'll be very simple, so.
And the company has been very wonderful to work with. I sent them an email today asking for our work permit to be uploaded into the system, and within a half an hour, it was uploaded into the system, and they had responded by email.
Yeah, it was so, and I did it on I don't know, the last company that we used, it was really, really hard to do it on a phone. You really needed to do it on like a laptop or a computer. I did it on my laptop, so, but I've heard families have done it on their phone, and it was pretty simple. So I'm assuming it's pretty user-friendly either way, so hopefully it is.
So hopefully,
I had one of my, so your number's down to 66, because both my kids did theirs today.
okay.
But we did one on a laptop and one on the phone.
Oh,
And
perfect.
And the timing was all the same, and it was
Good.
super easy. So.
Good.
Yeah. I was going to suggest maybe we send out a robocall prior to next week's OHSAA required meeting, just to remind people that they need to complete their final forms.
I agree.
There's
before.
robocalls already planned to go out, as well as Mrs. Horvath may have already done it or was going to do it tomorrow morning first thing, and another constant contact that was going to go out as well. That was
I
going
think
to
I
work
got
with
it today.
I got one today too for the sports meeting and something else, maybe the final
I
forms.
think it said at the bottom something about final forms.
Yes, I think so. I think you're right, yeah.
We're getting there. We cannot over communicate this enough, but
Right,
I'm glad that it worked out so far so good. As a reminder, the Eagle Bash is scheduled for
I'm
August.
sorry, before you go on.
I'm sorry.
I have a request that we have an arts, music, band, tab. They have a lot of forms too. If we could maybe consider that as a next step to add a form section for those folks. They have a lot of stuff to sign as well.
That's a good idea.
And they did say that during our first year of implementation, we could keep adding, and as we keep moving forward, we'll keep
Coming up on
and
things
get
that we
different things,
need.
and they'll just keep adding them as we go. So,
Nice.
again, a wonderful company so far to work with. Eagle Bash is scheduled for August 15th from 5 to 7 o'clock. Again, that is our celebratory event, our inaugural celebratory event to kick off the school year, hopefully to bring our school community and everybody together. I did list for the board the enrollment projections. Those change almost hourly, if not daily. So I just want to give you a reference point for that. And finally, some upcoming dates of interest for our district and the community. As it was just mentioned, the OHSAA mandatory fall sports meeting is scheduled for July 30th at 6 o'clock here in the auditorium. Tax-free week is scheduled for July 30th through August 8th. That went out today via constant contact along with the school supply list for our students. The Eagle Bash, again, as I had mentioned, is also scheduled. And then again, looking ahead, even farther ahead, open house dates, because we are rapidly planning for the start of the school year. Osterberg Elementary's open house date is August 22nd at 4:30. Cork, August 22nd at 5. GPS is August 23rd at 4 o'clock. The middle school is hosting two, one on August 20th for the 6th graders at 6 o'clock, and the other for 7th and 8th grade students on August 21st at 6. And finally, the high school will be having theirs on August 20th at 10 a.m. for 9th grade and new students. That is all I have for my July report.
Is there a reason why we do the high school at 10 a.m. and everything else in the evening?
I believe that was started with the prior school administration, and they believe it's been very well attended. I think they have the students come in, they have them tour the building. I think there are some staff members that are here. They have an actual kind of a captive audience here in the auditorium for a good chunk of time because they do go over perhaps a little bit more as they're in with a group at that point in time to do it. With the evening conflicts, there's just so many students that are working, so many students and families that have
Sports.
other family obligations and things like that. They try to go ahead and try to put that in the morning. And from what I understand, it has worked out. It has worked out well, and Mr. King chose to continue it again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have more on your list.
I'm going. The substitute superintendent recommends approval of the attached agreement and service contracts between the Ashtabula County Educational Service Center and the Geneva Area City School District for the DD satellites and building bridges for the 24-25 school year.
Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion about it? Questions, concerns? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson,
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg,
Yes.
and Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
The substitute superintendent recommends approval of the attached agreement and service contract between the Ashtabula County Educational Service Center and the Geneva Area City School District for the autism classrooms for the 24-25 school year.
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? I have a question. Do we know yet where the classrooms are going? They're in the middle school, right?
There's one at the middle school currently, and there's one anticipated being placed at Cork Elementary School.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson,
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg,
Yes.
and Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
The substitute superintendent recommends approval of the enclosed agreement with community counseling for the 24-25 school year.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? I want to thank you, Mr. Riley, for your work on this. We are now going to have a counselor, a professional, not just in addition to our school counselors, and in no way replacing them, but, and it's in every building, and it's outstanding. In 3 buildings,
Not-
excuse me,
2 buildings.
2 buildings.
This is the most counseling support that we've had in the district for several years. So
What he said.
moving forward, it's a good match.
Yes, thank you.
But I guess, how did we choose which buildings we're getting a counselor? Are they moving between buildings? Or,
The current, we have one that will be at, for the elementary standpoint, we'll have one that will be at Cork and Cork and Austinburg, splitting time. And then on the opposite days, our teachers union, we have a counselor there. They will be flip-flopping, so there will always be one counselor there at those buildings and every day. And then at the elementary, and then over at GPS, we have a full-time counselor there,
okay. Through this agreement?
separate.
Separate agreement, through the contract?
You know, we
Oh, we
hired
hired
a
2,
second
right.
elementary guidance counselor, so one elementary guidance counselor is now
Full-time
full-time
at
at
GPS.
GPS, and the other one is split between Austinburg and Cork.
Okay.
Any other discussion about it? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Following existing policies are enclosed for the board's review. This is the first reading. No? Why
Simply,
doesn't it ever say that? I can't keep track of that.
simply a review.
This is just like an annual notice requirement
Okay.
for Title I, homeless.
Oh, this isn't the
So
Neola
thi-
ones or anything?
No, this isn't the normal
Oh, okay.
revised, that's why it doesn't say, it. It's just that the existing policies are enclosed for the board's review.
Okay, thank you. Any, we don't need to vote on anything then, right?
Nope.
No, right? Any questions or comments about any of the policies or anything you want to discuss? Board? Okay. then move-
Actually, I
oh,
do
go
have
ahead,
a
I'm sorry.
question. In the policy 5111.01, the homeless students, it says we have to have a liaison for homeless children. Do we have that person? It's you? Okay.
Yes, it's one of my many roles.
Okay.
As assistant superintendent, correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Anything else? Okay, we need to talk about is this the Capitol Conference?
Yes.
Yes.
This
So
is the-
Capitol Conference in November, we need to talk about who wants to go and get that approval moving, and then also who wants to be our delegate and our alternate for the business meeting. I did a business meeting last year, but then I got COVID, so I came home and didn't go. So, any discussion about that? Anyone who wants to go? Beth wants to go, right?
Yes, if I could, that would be awesome.
I would like to go. I'm presenting at Capitol Conference this year.
Yeah.
So,
So you want to go as one of us, or you want to just worry about that?
well, either way,
I think she needs to go
Mm-hmm.
as a board member. She's just, when she's down there, she's going to present.
Okay.
correct.
Yeah. And I would like to go as well. Dave, are you going? Do you know? Thought about it? November? Rock?
I'd like to go.
If we can all go without breaking quorum rules, then
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, yeah, I'd love to
They're
go.
all always there.
Yeah, I think it's imperative. We've all, everyone on this board, whether we've agreed or disagreed, one of the cool things behind the scenes is everyone has really truly been working together. Even
Yeah.
if I and others need bonked over
agree.
the head every once in a while, so it'd be nice to move together as a unit on this. So as long as no one else cares, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. I would love that.
Sure.
There's always, like, Connie,
Kevin,
Lori
do
Riley.
we have room in our budget for that?
Lori Riley.
There's money budgeted within the board service fund that would cover the cost of this, yes.
Okay.
And Connie always takes her whole board.
Of course, it'll be Shelley that'll have to put that in.
Yeah.
Appropriations for next year.
Yes.
One room at the Red Roof Inn in Columbus.
One room. Bunk beds. I call top bunk.
Pack your sleeping bag.
All right. That's great. I would love for all of us to go. I'll talk to Jamie about it when she gets back and see if we can add her to the list.
Okay.
And so what do we do first? We all have to fill out that form?
The importance of this item
get our forms
is
on
we need
final
a
forms?
motion and a second nominating a delegate
delegate.
and an alternate
Yeah.
for the business meeting.
Okay.
And then you can piggyback on this and we could say that
We're all
the other
approved
two
to
that
go.
are going
Okay.
to go and have that approval on this item
Do I have any nominations for a delegate to the business meeting?
for both. Delegate and alternate.
Well, delegate and then alternate, right?
But I will mention that in the past, usually the delegate was the legislative liaison
Yeah,
if they were
that's-
going to be able to go.
I was just going to say that.
That's why I went last year.
That's what I
'cause
was
it's
gonna say.
Mostly the legislative stuff. The meeting that I went to was, electing the new officers and all of that. But it was also a lot of some policy things that they send you in advance and you can discuss it and vote on. It was really cool.
Yeah, and if it's contractual business consideration and implication, I mean, that's what I do for a job.
Yeah.
So I know that you guys are all really disappointed that you won't get
I
to.
loved it. I had no experience.
No,
doing
yeah,
that, so-
I do think it's interesting too, and some of the potential conflicts that are created are beyond the mind-numbing ones, pretty cool. But yeah, no, if that's what's being asked of me, I'd love to do that. But if anyone else really wants to go instead, I'm not opposed to standing aside.
Okay.
So I
So
would
we have-
nominate Brock as our delegate and Marty as our
Alternate.
alternate. The word was escaping me.
So the alternate would
discussion about that?
attend if the delegate is
Delegate
not
couldn't.
able to attend.
Would you prefer to attend it?
No, I went last year.
Oh, okay.
No, I went, but then right after that I left.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I gave everybody
Yeah.
COVID.
I will let you know that in the past, there was usually a form that the delegate and the alternate had, well, I filled it out and then you had to sign it. But this year, they've finally gone online, so once I submit the names, then you will get an email to
Okay.
go in and fill, or supply your information.
Perfect.
Thank
Perfect.
you. Thank you.
Any other discussion about that? So we need a vote. The motion is to nominate Mr. Pierson and myself. Roll call, please.
The motion was Mrs. Cybulski and Michele Michelle, you made the second.
Yes.
And we're going to piggyback on with that motion that
Under one vote?
Marty
Okay,
and Michelle will also attend, actually
Okay.
Beth and Michelle will also attend.
okay.
Okay?
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends approval to renew the membership in the Ohio School Board's Council. Excuse me,
no.
Ohio Schools Council, paying the annual fee of $554.96. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion about that? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
And Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends that the board approve the enclosed resolution pursuant to section 5705.21 of the revised code to proceed with submitting to the electors of the school district on the November 5th, 2024 ballot, the question of the renewal of an existing .85 mil tax levy for the purpose of general ongoing permanent improvements. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Has anybody been contacted about people interested in being on the levy committee?
I've got some good news to report.
Let's hear it.
So I reached out to several people in the community. Chris Dodd has agreed to chair the levy committee. I have several people that have agreed to be a part of that committee. So he is going to take the lead and take it away.
Nice.
I've contacted other people to be in touch with him, and I'm just kind of taking and putting my hands up in the air and walking away at this point.
Very good.
I did forward him the sheet that Mr. Lillie had put out from the district as far as the do's and don'ts from the Attorney General, and I forwarded him the link to the Attorney General's page in regards to school levies and things of that nature. And they're going to start convening and moving forward with that. And I thanked him profusely. And so we should start seeing some movement in that direction. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Do you know if anybody stepped forward to be the treasurer? Because that's a key position
So-
to meet the filing requirements.
Yes,
and so on.
so my hope is that Andrew Raymond is going to be that person. Jerry reached out to him, and he's not accepted yet, so please don't say that he is committed to that at this point. But I've done what I can to hopefully convince him to take that position. So we're hopeful that he is going to be that person. I think he would be wonderful. But hopefully I'll have an answer here within a short time frame, and we'll go from there. I'm just trying to be very,
No
I'm
pressure.
trying to be very careful with how I, get people involved, but I don't want them to feel like I'm also, clubbing them over the head to do this job. So, but yes, that's definitely, we're working on that, and then to have that, like you said, to file the paperwork and that transition so that he can take that role and do it appropriately.
Very nice. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes. The treasurer recommends that a student activity account be established for the class of 2031. I need a motion, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Any discussion? I
Wow.
remember when the class of 2000 entered kindergarten. This is how long I've been doing this. In discussion? No? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes. The substitute sorry, go ahead. I was just reading. I'm just reading on.
The substitute superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 23-24 school year, or contract year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
The substitute superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 2024-25 contract year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
It's really awesome to see that there is a band camp, summer marching band, special needs assistant. And I want to say, usually she's here. Hopefully she's enjoying her summer. Very special thanks to Sammy for stepping up and filling that role. Not only as someone who's been so parallel to Gamba, but that's awesome because it makes band way more accessible to people. So we thank her very much for that.
Mine has an O. My practice is spelled wrong. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pierson. I concur. Any other discussion about it? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Krieg?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
This is the item on the agenda where we welcome public comments. Public comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Please state your name and address for the record for a total of a 30-minute segment, at which time speakers will be ended. I think that's all. Good evening.
Okay. Amy Wood, 6624 West Maple in Geneva. So this is a speech I wrote a while ago, and at the end of the year I got pretty defeated, so I did not read it, but I'm going to because I would like you to keep it in mind for this school year. You only get as far as you communicate. That was why I was currently going to stand up and read this letter. We are lacking in communication as a team. I will not say we don't work as a team with each other, but I do believe that more than not, we are working against each other. As an example, there was an issue arose where a student did not want to be in class. Issues came up, and there were those that did not know IEP routine or did not want to be around the student and wanted to choose who they were able to work with. The problem to these things were lack of the C word, communication. We are told we can do anything to try to help the children, but then there's pushback, frustration on everyone's part. This, again, is not only an issue, but just an example. We then look at safety as a factor. We have multiple children in multiple buildings in the hallways, children whom are explosive in class. We have behavior charts to follow now, new behavior charts, but we now have students who do not have who have behaviors. We have children who are hiding under desks, needing to be walked around the building more, having their own behaviors, and this is impeding not only those children, but this is impeding everyone's children. They're not learning anything. We're walking complete classrooms around the building. We then look at safety for the staff. We, for example, are being put in situations where we have children who do not want to be in class again, constantly make up things, who are being very violent. This is putting so much stress on your staff because there is just not enough of us. That being said, everyone needs personal time but hates taking the time in fear of leaving others alone. Another way, it puts so much stress on our minds and bodies of not just us, but other students and other people that are seeing this. We have to come together as a staff and not be pushed further apart than we already are. Even when it's uncomfortable or uneasy, one of the best ways to heal is to get everything out. I think in next year or in your future, it would be better for all of us if we offered more quarterly meetings, monthly check-ins with the teachers, check-ins with the staff. What can we change? What is working? What is not working? What can we do to better us as a team? We are not a one, we are a team. I know that I could always benefit from more education, and I continuously push myself for more education. But I just want to leave you guys with one last thing. A lot of disabilities are invisible. Your reaction to them, it's not. So we have to do better with children with health problems, children with behaviors, regular children, children with everything. You need to start training your staffs better because it's not only stressful on us, our children at home feel that if we have our own children, children at school are feeling that. Again, you have kids hiding under desks, staff getting the crap beat out of them. We have to do better. If I can do anything to help with that, I'm your number one girl. I'll stand up and I'll do it every day. I can't watch it anymore. We have to do better.
Thanks, Amy.
Amy, I can only speak for myself, but I've seen you at GPS, which has our gifted unit, in our special needs unit, in our cool-down unit,
Yeah.
and tends to all of those needs simultaneously with the largest enrollment of any of the elementary schools
Yep.
in the district, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to say that when I've been there, each time you've been very calmly administering a cool down of some sort and de-escalating a situation. So while it's really hard to hear what you say because we don't like criticism, having an advocate for students that brings this to our attention, whether it's good or it's bad, is really appreciated. And I've seen you lead by this firsthand. I don't understand it as fully as I should. I've been working with the principal there. But if you don't mind, I might just pen a quick email to get your thoughts on some things.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that most of us would be, amicable to that. But thank you for speaking.
Yeah,
to it.
absolutely, because honestly, I am going to school for K through 12 with special education because of this district. I would love to stay in this district, but we have to do better. When our own children, my own children, are in counseling because of issues in that school last year, or when we have children hiding under desks and we're moving classrooms out of the building, or like out of their room, we are failing. Because we're talking neurodivergent, which we should be. We're talking autism, absolutely.
Correct.
I am the first pusher for kids who need help.
Right.
But you also cannot forget about your average Joes, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. When your children are not learning, those are not just your children. Those become my children, and they're in my care when I'm at school. So whether people like it or not, I'm gonna push for fair treatment, because those kids become mine. When they're mine for 6.5 hours a day, I treat them like I would treat my children at home. If I have to be the one to do it, that's fine. I don't mind.
And one child's least restrictive environment should not become another child's most restrictive environment.
Absolutely.
We are
So,
working on it.
again, I'm here. I am offered any step, any way I can help. But before we lose staff or before we start losing children to other schools, we have to do better.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
have to do better.
And before we lose children to mental health crises, which we've unfortunately
Which
had to face
we're
before.
pretty much in due
We're
to
there.
COVID and all those things, but if we don't start stepping up and training staff better and training everyone better in these areas, we're not gonna get anywhere. Because unfortunately, it's not getting better, it's getting worse. With all the stuff out in the world today and the things kids are seeing and all of this, we have to do better. We're failing these families, allowing this to happen. Those kids go home terrified for being in our care. And I don't know about anybody else, but there's days I go home and cry for the fact that kids sat under a desk and cried all day. That's horrible for a child, because they don't want to come back. We're pushing them to, here, let's go for a walk, and we're putting you right back in that room. So hopefully we can do something better, because it's got to change. It's not a good situation when you have kids that don't want to be in school anymore. Schools used to be a safe haven for getting away from bad things at home, not going right back to bad things. So we just gotta do better. We have to, and that will be my push this year, is we have to do something. Training, every team member here, including all of you, all of us, everyone in this audience, parents, we have to be on the same page. We cannot be doing different things and not communicating.
It's quite literally the definition of insanity.
And that first line is in one of our banners in our school, by the way. You only get as far as you communicate. Took that off of there, just so we know.
Thank
Because
you.
we have to do
We
that.
are working on it, Amy.
I know, I'm gonna keep pushing.
Yeah, do that. Do that, yeah. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Board member reports. Anyone have anything to share?
I have some things. Go for it, you go.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to share, I wanted to say thank you to the board for approving my training opportunity on Saturday at OSBA. It
I
was,
looked for you in the pictures and I didn't see you in any of them.
I sat in the back row. No,
Oh,
not
was
really.
She wasn't there, she was at a winery.
But it was very helpful, very enlightening, and the networking was wonderful. So I got a few ideas that I just wanted to throw out for consideration. I know in the past we had public comments earlier in the meeting. And now they're at the end of the meeting. But one example that one district was talking about was they had public comments at the beginning of the meeting, which makes sense to me, because if you're going to be talking about things on the agenda,
Right.
I feel like you should hear input before we talk about them. So anyway, So they do 2 public comments. The first public comments are only about agenda items. And you have to submit your name, like the day before, and get on a list and say what agenda item you want to talk about.
Cool.
And then you can do your normal public comments later. But I feel like we're missing an opportunity to hear what people have to say about our agenda items before we're voting or discussing them. So that was one.
We've gone round and round about this. We used to have to. We used to have one at the beginning.
But I do
Now we
like
have
the
one at the
idea
end,
that
and
the
then we
one at
keep
the
moving it.
beginning is agenda specific.
Yeah.
So so we can keep things moving. And then the second thing that I got an example of a new member orientation packet from Tuscarawas Valley. They
board
had new board member orientation packet. As a new board member, this is my 4th meeting, and I still don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I still have a lot of questions. So this is, you would get assigned a mentor, and you meet with people who've been on the board, and it very much steps about when and how you visit buildings, how you put things on the agenda, all of these wonderful things that new board members would be really happy to know. So I have an example of that I would like to share with all of you as well. And then my last question was, they talked a lot about committees and assigning committee positions when you're a new board member. I don't know if we have committees, if we don't have committees, like a policy committee or a student achievement committee or any of those kind of important things that we could talk about offline and bring community members to the table on. So just wanted to throw that idea
So
out there as well.
You can't talk about those offline. When you have board committees, keep in mind that they have to be advertised and open to the public, just like a regular board meeting. So you made a comment, speak offline, but you're really not speaking.
Well,
offline.
not offline. I guess somewhere other than right here on a once-a-month basis with everyone there. I know committees, we couldn't have everyone on the committee. You'd have 1 or 2 board members, some stakeholders.
Once we notice it and all of that, then we can have as many as we want. We can all be there.
Right, but
But
I don't think that's, I guess it's something that I just wanted to know if we have anything in place. And if not, I think that the facilities thing is a great example of a committee that would be nice to have.
Yeah.
I think it would help move some things forward that we keep talking about, so.
I'm a huge advocate for a policy committee. I have been, and I am a huge advocate for picking up. I don't really know, and this might be my own ignorance, where the athletic facility committee has gone since Mr. Wilt's, leaving the board. But I do want to keep that ball rolling. I did get 2 questions prior to sitting up here tonight from people that just said, hey, I just wanted to know when or if there would be a presentation. If you could pin down, I'd just like to attend it. I'm not good at sports and sportsing in general, so that is not a question for me, but I would like to have people I trust. Michele, I know that you were one half of that whole, but if we could have that conversation regarding committees, even if it's just to put it as an agenda item to present to the community so we can also get your input, I think that we're far overdue on 1 or 2 committees that help bridge the gap. And the more transparent we are, it seems the nicer that people are. So
Yeah.
when we talk to them, they're
And
kind.
I started a policy committee, Brock. I started the work for that
Okay.
and was roadblocked. And then I never got back to it.
Yeah, I can.
So
Yeah.
I want to get back to it because I agree with you 100%. That we need these. We need these.
And I'm okay with noticing.
Yeah, me too.
totally.
Truly.
Yeah,
It's not a barrier. I think that it's good advertising. Shout out Star Beacon, thank you. And it allows us to have kind of a thumbnail page to share and a place to be where, people can come have those conversations with us.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
Right. Yep. So let's all put that back on our radar and start thinking about
And thank you very much for sharing
How to,
that because it revives a very important
formalize
conversation.
those. Think which ones you think we need, which ones you think you'd be willing to spearhead. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
I just had a few things. Levy committee, which I already talked about. I've had a couple people reach out to me about 440 and goal. This seems to be a hot button topic, apparently. When I first had somebody reach out to me about it, they prefaced it as the Gridiron Club. And when I pushed back a little bit with it, I found out it was the County Gridiron Club, not our district's Gridiron Club. So I immediately went to Ms. Crosley because I thought it was when they said Gridiron Club, I just assumed it was Geneva. And so I went to her and she said, well, I will talk to the coaches and whatnot. So she did. It was relayed to me that we weren't really, our district wasn't really a fan of how 440 and goal presented themselves at one time. And I guess Dr. Treharn was not a fan as well. And so I gave it to Ms. Crosley as far as how to handle it and move forward from there. So I wanted just to share that came about. I don't know, I think they want to come in and broadcast. Apparently they broadcast from different sporting events and things of that nature. So that might be something you want to put on your radar. I received several emails regarding open enrollment. I forwarded them to Mr. Riley and Mr. Donatone, and those are currently being addressed. Final forms, we already talked a little bit about that, and it was pretty seamless and went very well, and it was easy for me, but we talked about that. Fall sports meeting, July 30th at 6 p.m. I got the constant contact on that today, and I wanted to mention that. The Eagle Bash as well. And I wanted to just touch base a little bit. I've heard a lot of things over the past 3 weeks in our community about, I've heard an example of a family that has been identified as being homeless. I've heard about families that have lost parents, grandparents, and I feel like our district is in a position right now to really be a servant to a lot of these families. And I think as a board, as a community, as a school district, I constantly hear that everyone wants to see Geneva schools once again become a destination district. I hear this over and over and over again. And I think as a district, when you hear these stories, and it probably tugs at my heartstrings a little bit more because of what I do for a living, but I see the flip side of the coin when you have children that are experiencing loss or hardship or homelessness or any type of heartache. But as a district, if we can meet them where they are and we can provide something to fill that gap and make their life easier, whether it be a placement in a school or a placement in a classroom or, you know, helping a child that's struggling, as Amy spoke about tonight, which I had no idea about that until she came in today. We need to do it. And we need to be those people, those professionals, that setting that makes that child feel comfortable and meets the need for that family at that moment. And I feel like there's been some instances over the past month where we've not done that, and we need to do better. So I would hope that as a district, if we're able to meet that need for families in our district, that we're doing that. So I just wanted to say that on the record. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a couple things. I neglected to mention last month, and I apologize, about how honored is the best word, for my role in our graduation in June. I loved it. I took a moment to really look into each student's eyes and congratulate them by name, and it was such a beautiful thing to be able to do as an alumni, as a board member, as all of that. And I just wanted to thank everyone who does such a beautiful ceremony for us, and It's just, it was spectacular. I thought it would, yes, I would do it, right? I'll do it, I'm board president. I'll hand out the diplomas, but it meant something to me, and I wanted y'all to know that. That can't be all I have. Yeah, final forms. I have a lot of the same repeats, the band tab. And tonight, of course, is Mr. Kevin Lillie's final performance as Geneva's school treasurer, and we got him a tiny little card, and we got him some gluten-free cupcakes. And so we'll be doing that after if anyone wants to join us for cupcakes. Anything else? Okay. Yeah, Kevin. Also, Shelley, do you mind? Shelley, I'm gonna put Shelley on the spot too. So Shelley McDermott is our incoming treasurer. Those of you that have not met her, take a moment and say hello and get to know her a little bit. Kevin, did you want to say something?
No, I'm fine.
Speech! Speech!
I'm fine, move on.
Okay.
The board will hold it.
Yes, right. You read it.
A loss
It's-
for words?
It's all the words.
Board will hold an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline, or compensation of a public employee, the investigation of charges or complaints against the public employee, conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, and preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
All right. We are not returning for business following our executive session. So have a nice night, everyone. I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. Pierson,
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
and Mrs. Krieg.
Yes.
I know gluten-free doesn't always mean low